Berserk chapter 363 was good. It wasn't great, okay? It was definitely not as good as 362, our previous chapter. Obviously, that chapter gave a lot of information, things like Skull Knight's past and stuff like that. However, this chapter was still good, and I think that it was at least worth the wait. At the minimum, it was worth the wait. This chapter starts off with Guts confirming that what we saw in Skull Knight's memories was indeed an eclipse. There was some speculation about it maybe not being an eclipse. I even thought that there was the potential for it not to be an eclipse because we obviously don't see an eclipse. We just see this void vortex thing. So with that being said, that also means that this was the birth of a Godhand member, also meaning that this was indeed Void's birth. This same panel also has Guts questioning, is Skull Knight the same as him? He says, is he the same as me? Now, this is something that we've already known, but I think this is important because Guts is kind of like aware that he is going down the same path as Skull Knight. He potentially could become what Skull Knight is, in a sense. Skull Knight then brings the group to a mausoleum, and I think something just to note, it could just be an artistic choice, but I also think it's kind of like something that stuck out to me the second time I read it through, is that there are elves all around this place. Like, as you see, they're sleeping in the flowers and everything, and I think that's just kind of like a cool thing. Maybe it's an artistic choice, but I think it also shows that maybe this place is very important. Also with like the glowing spirally egg-shaped thing, obviously an important place, on top of it being a mausoleum in the first place. And one more thing to add to that is it's beneath the roots of the spirit tree, so this is definitely a very special and important place. Danon, the Queen of Elves, happens to be here, and she asks Skull Knight, do you come to see the Lady Priestess of the Cherry Blossoms? Now, we've never heard this title before, so that makes me assume that this is the title of Skull Knight's lover. So that is whatever that means, that is who Skull Knight's lover was. She was the Lady Priestess of the Cherry Blossoms. More importantly, that also means that Skull Knight's lover is buried here, or her body or whatever, maybe her soul or something, she's here. Guts and Schierke instantly make the connection that this lady looks exactly like Danon. The lady they saw inside of Skull Knight's memories looks exactly like Danon. Schierke even says she looks like a spitting image. Now, this could mean a few things. I have two theories, one of which is a little crazy, little out there, but maybe Danon is potentially the Skull Knight's lover, which doesn't make sense, but maybe she has a different body or something, I don't know. Anyways, I'm probably throwing that one out there, but I'm going to keep it because if I'm right, that would be crazy, but most likely not the case. What could be the case is that she is related. Both of them are related. The lady in Skull Knight's memories is related to Danon, the Queen of Elves. And that would make sense because she has such a prestigious title. Her title is literally the Lady Priestess of the Cherry Blossoms. And the title of Danon is the Queen of Elves or the Lord of Elves, So it would make sense that these could be potentially related, like a familiar thing. What is that called? Not hierarchy. I gotta think of the word. Basically, a monarchy kind of like that. Elfhelm is kind of like a monarchy. And maybe these people are just, ruling it and stuff like that. We then get an image that I think is super powerful. I literally can't explain it. I don't know how to, I can't think of it because I don't know what makes it so special. But if you look at this, we have Danon and Skull Knight looking at each other. Kind of like, I don't know how to, I really don't know how to explain it. But if you're looking at this, there's something just powerful about this image. There's something amazing about this image. I'm thinking maybe it could be the contrast of like how Skull Knight is kind of shaded and dark and Danon is not as shaded, she's lighter. But maybe it's that he's towering over her, or it's the facial expressions, Skull Knight not having one, and her just looking at him, I don't know, in a certain way. I have no idea. There is something powerful about this image that it's just, I hope I'm not the only one that feels this way when looking at this. There's something really just, it emanates something. And I don't think there's ever going to be something that alludes to this connection or anything. I don't know, but it's just such a good image. Anyways, Skull Knight then says, I am a portent of doom, the remnant of a grudge. My aim is ever singular. I have not the heart to bathe in the lambent sea of my mortal days. This quote, this scene itself does a lot, and it says a few important things. Firstly, it fleshes out Skull Knight, obviously. That's really important. Skull Knight as a character has not been developed that much, I would say, obviously, because he's a mysterious character, and Elfhelm has done a lot to give him character and build him a lot more, because he is this mysterious character. We're not supposed to know much about him, and now we get to know a little bit more about him through Elfhelm. Another important thing in this scene, and in this quote specifically, is Skull Knight says he is a portent of doom. A portent is an omen a bad omen specifically. A portent is a sign or warning of something, especially a monumentous or calamitous thing. That I got that off Google. But a portent is a bad omen basically. And this could just be potentially, a translation thing. However, it could also be good word choice. And we'll get back to this later because something happens at the end, which if you read the chapter, hopefully you read the chapter. If you're watching this without reading the chapter, what the heck are you doing? If you read this without reading Berserk, what are you doing? Read it. It's amazing. But anyways, you know what happens at the end of the chapter, and I think that this could be foreshadowing something. The last thing I want to talk about for this scene specifically is what I find most important about it, and that is the reason Skull Knight is at this place. Skull Knight says he has not the heart to bathe in the lamency of his mortal days. You see, Skull Knight's lover, the remains of her, are obviously at this mausoleum. However, he's not here to see them. He's here on business. He's obviously, I assume, here to see Danon and talk to her. That would make the most sense of why he went here. And that would make sense why Danon is here. He went to see her and talk to her. He has business to do. It could also be that Danon just happens to be there, and he's here for that egg thing that he went straight to when he entered the mausoleum. But he's not here to see the remains, maybe pay respects to his lover or anything. And I think that this is very important. And the reason this is important is it shows that Skull Knight cares more about vengeance than he does about his lover. He's already lost her, of course. She's gone. She's dead. However, it shows that Skull Knight cares more about vengeance, and his anger has taken it over, and his feelings of his anger have overtaken his feelings for his lover. And I think that's something that's really important, because that could happen to Guts. It could just be coincidence, or it could just be translation. But I also think the word choice of heart is important here. Obviously, heart in this case is used to just say emotions. He doesn't have the emotions too. But Skull Knight's heart is also talked about once again towards the end of this chapter when Gedfring says his heart is different from that of a man. And I think that's important because that also shows that he doesn't have all the emotions of a human. He doesn't have the feelings of a human. He's literally driven on one singular thing, and that is the remnant of a grudge. So that just shows that Skull Knight no longer has emotions other than that he's literally living to get revenge. Guts is on the path that Skull Knight was, and he's on the path to have that anger consume and overpower his love for Casca. Guts, Gedfring, and Schierke all see that, Skull Knight and Danon need to talk, and we're not invited to this discussion, okay? They say, seems we're not invited. So they go on their way. And then Schierke asks Gedfring what the connection between Skull Knight and Flora is. Gedfring then tells Schierke that Flora actually served under the Lady Priestess of the Cherry Blossoms, aka Skull Knight's lover. So that explains Flora and Skull Knight's relationship now. Flora served under his significant other. So that makes a lot of sense on why they have such a close relationship. Now, before I get further on to what he says about Flora, this means something very important. Firstly, Flora's very old, okay? Flora is very old because King Geyserich, aka Skull Knight, his kingdom fell 1,000 years ago. So Flora's obviously very old. And, I do know that time does flow slower on Elfhelm, which will come into effect later towards when I talk about the end. But basically, Flora has been around for a very long time, and so has Skull Knight. So obviously, that just shows that they have been friends for a very long time. Gedfring goes on to say that Flora was very fond of Skull Knight and his lover, but also that her feelings were too strong, and after the eclipse that we saw in the previous chapter, Void's Birth, that Flora violated a taboo, and for that reason she was exiled from the village, but not just exiled, she was driven from the island. It's important to note that she was driven from the island. That seems like people were attacking her if she didn't leave, or they were going to hurt her if she didn't leave, because she violated this taboo. She was not just exiled, but she was forced out. Gedfring does not say what taboo she violated, and I think this is one of those things that Kentaro has sprinkled seeds in, and it will come back later, and we'll find out later what taboo she violated. But for right now, we don't know, and it leaves Schierke wondering through the entire chapter, what taboo did she violate? And maybe she'll ask in the next chapter something potentially, but I don't think that's going to happen because next chapter, we'll talk about it at the end, towards the end, because that explains a lot more. But basically, this is something that we might not get the answer for a long time. However, we can assume what happened based off things we know. I have two theories on what taboo Flora violated. The first one being is that Flora tried to revive Skull Knight's lover. She tried to revive her master, someone she was very fond of, and that would be explained by Gedfring saying that she was very fond of them and her feelings were too strong for them. That would make a lot of sense. And obviously, a great taboo like bringing someone back from the dead, you know? That's something that I would assume is a great taboo, using magic to go against the natural laws of nature. That would make a lot of sense. Now, an argument to this could be, well, firstly, it might not be a taboo, which, you know, I don't think that's it. But secondly, and more importantly, is that she failed. Skull Knight's lover is not living right now. That's quite apparent. She is not alive. So why would it matter if she failed? Is the attempt at it like enough to just drive her and exile her? Maybe, but I don't know. But that's the first thing, I think, that maybe she tried to bring back Skull Knight. The second theory I have is that Flora did something to make Skull Knight the way he is. You see, Gedfring even says, our friend is not of our world. I think that Flora could have potentially tried or done something to Skull Knight to make him the way he is, to make it so that he is like maybe immortal or something. I don't know. But she could have done something to Skull Knight to make him the way he is now, because he's obviously not who he was before. You know, he was King Geiseric, so she did something. Maybe she wanted vengeance also, so she helped Skull Knight. Or maybe she just respected Skull Knight so much that he wanted vengeance and she would help him because she respected Skull Knight. I don't know. But I do think that the other thing that could have happened is that she did something to make Skull Knight the way he is now. Gedfring says something that gives a little insight onto his relationship with Flora. He doesn't say flat out his relationship with Flora. He doesn't. But he refers to Flora as my friend. He says, my friend Flora violated a taboo. And I think this is very important because it shows that Gedfring kind of cares for Flora still. Even though she violated this taboo, she did something bad. Let's say, you know, maybe she tried to bring someone back to life, or she did something with Skull Knight to make him the way he is. That is obviously something very bad. But Gedfring still sees Flora as his friend. And I think that shows that Gedfring doesn't like that she was exiled. Like, he knows rules are rules, so, you know, she had to be exiled. But he still sees Flora as a friend. After that, we have a little sequence of Isidro just messing around with the mages, getting revenge on them because they messed him up. So we want revenge, and we have the sequence. And as everyone was reading it, I know, because this happened to me too, we saw this and we're like, what is this for? There's no reason for this. And then when the chapter finished, we're like, oh, that was the calm before the storm. Okay, this was comedic relief, because something crazy is going to happen next chapter, most likely. And also, even though, you know, it is lots of time, like it's literally months between chapters, so, you know, it doesn't feel as intense, but last chapter was indeed intense. You know, we get this, we literally saw a freaking eclipse, man. The eclipse of Void being born. Okay, that was an intense chapter. And next chapter, only 2 chapters later, are we going to have something go down, most likely. So obviously this was here for comedic relief, and honestly, it made me laugh a little bit. I kind of chuckled when Isidro used elf bullet and you could see like the elf's eyes being peeled back and his mouth being peeled back because they're moving so fast. I find that kind of funny. I did chuckle a little bit. And also, you know, you have Puck kind of like looking like a Jar Jar Binks, Lord Palpatine, and what else? A stormtrooper? Just, you know, Star Wars is canon, guys. It's canon that Star Wars is inside of Berserk. Okay, but anyways, and then we also, I guess the only other thing to note is that Isma, you know, our mermaid lady, or Isma, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Same with Schierke, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Anyways, we see her and she tamed a Kelpie and she stops the rampage of Isidro, and that's like the end to the sequence. After that sequence, we see Schierke just wondering and just standing there wondering why. Why did Flora leave this place? Why was she forced out? Why was she exiled? What taboo did she break? Because it obviously was something very serious. And now I know I said it's that she tried bringing her master back to life, and I guess another argument to it being, other than that it's not a taboo potentially, is that, well, she failed, so why does it matter in the first place? But anyways, Schierke is left wondering after the sequence still, and it's stuck on her mind obviously, and that's why it comes back up again. Why did Flora get exiled, and what taboo did she break? After Isidro's rampage, we get this amazing picture of Guts just sitting against this tree. There's something about this one that's amazing. Not like the one with Skull Knight and Dan, and I feel like there's something powerful about this one. But this one's just amazing and nice to look at. You can see, and there's like the glow of Guts having against the darkness. It's really nice. And then it blends in with the glow of the outline of the tree. I love this one. This is a really, really good picture. It's just amazing. Anyways, that doesn't have anything to do with the story. Let me go on to the story and what's said. We get this little scene of Guts and Gedfring talking alone. Obviously, Schierke went to like stop Isidro's rampage, so now we have these two characters alone. And Gedfring tells Guts that he is quite acquainted with Skull Knight, or he seems to be quite acquainted with Skull Knight. And Guts says, no, it's more of like, you know, he just like appears out of nowhere. He's babbling prophecies, but he also kind of owes him a tiny bit because he did, you know, save him. Like the first time we saw Skull Knight, he appeared randomly at Guts and he told him that an eclipse was coming. So yeah, he just appears randomly and he just starts babbling some prophecies. Gedfring says something that Skull Knight says about himself early in the chapter. Skull Knight says that he is nothing but a remnant of a grudge, and Gedfring then says he is only driven by a profound grudge and endless rage. And this is important to note because everyone that knows Skull Knight obviously sees Skull Knight the same way. They know Skull Knight, so they know that he only exists for this vengeance. He is literally just an entity living off of this fury, this anger, to get revenge. Gedfring goes on to say to Guts that perhaps he is so fascinated with you because you are much like his former self. And I think this is important to note, other than just like the confirmation that Guts is going down the same path that Skull Knight is. I think it's important because people outside of Guts and Skull Knight themselves can see that Guts is going down the same path that Skull Knight is, and he needs to do something about it. Guts says thanks and he brushes it off like he doesn't need anyone's help, he's not going to die. But to reinforce that idea, Gedfring even says, then in the end you must determine what to make of your fury, whether it is to be the breath that keeps you alive or the hellfire that consumes you from within. This just shows that Gedfring knows that Guts is going down the exact same path Skull Knight is, and he needs to do something about it. And luckily, because Skull Knight has gone down this path, they know what will happen. They can see what will happen, and that Guts can be saved. However, just like an addict, Guts needs to be willing to save himself. Guts alone has to decide what he can do with this fury. He can be influenced by other people, but he alone has to make the decision, and he will make the decision of what he will make of his fury. Unlike Skull Knight, Guts still has Casca. He still has his lover. And we can even see here, after Gedfring says that, what to make of your fury, we see Guts can see through the window and see Casca and Farnus. He sees his love. He sees his reason for living. Obviously, he cares more about Casca than he cares about vengeance, because if he didn't, he would have gone after Griffith, then try and save Casca. That's quite apparent. But the thing is, he's on this path, just like Skull Knight was. Skull Knight cared more about his lover than his vengeance, but he let his vengeance take over, and he became what he is today. Guts is on the path to having his anger and fury take over, and him care less about Casca than he does about his vengeance. Guts brushes off what Gedfring says because he's like, forget about determinant or whatever. You know, there's not much to do on this lazy island other than nap and swing this sword around all day, right? So Guts brushes it off, and then he gets a vision of Griffith. He sees Griffith in his memories and in his mind, and he has to brush that off too because like he's trying to suppress his anger and all that. He's trying to just ignore that. He has Casca. He knows that he doesn't want to go down this like path of vengeance, but he also is very angry at Griffith still. Like he still has this hatred for him. He's trying to brush that off in a way. You see, Guts has Casca, as I said, you know, he has the person he loves. He has what he's living for. He has her, and she is recovering. She's not in the best state, but with time she could heal mentally, because right now she's obviously mentally scarred really bad. So she could recover, and they could live out happily ever after. Guts has Casca. They could live out their lives on Elfhelm. And that would be fine. They would be okay. Guts could never seek vengeance on Griffith. He could just accept what he has and take that and live out his days. However, something bad happens. The Moonlight Boy appears. If you don't know who the Moonlight Boy is, let me give you the quick rundown of what happened. So basically, Guts and Casca's child, when Casca gets violated during the eclipse by Griffith, or Femto, basically that child gets tainted and becomes the demon baby that we see. And then that demon baby eventually fuses with the egg that Griffith/Femto gets his physical body from. And then when he's born, he's sharing a body with the Moonlight Boy, aka Guts and Casca's child. So that's how that happens, and that's how the Moonlight Boy becomes something. And then every full moon, the Moonlight Boy takes over the body, and then he goes to see his parents, Guts and Casca. That's basically the TLDR of the Moonlight Boy. And something to note about this is that he is sharing a body with Griffith. I think that's the most important part. I'm going to make a video on why the Moonlight Boy is the most pivotal and influential character in Berserk now, but I'll do that later in the future. Anyways, the Moonlight Boy appears on Elfhelm and in front of Guts. Now this most likely means certain chaos. There are 3 things that I think could go down or could happen. The first of which is the boy could just, just disappear like normal. The full moon goes away and he goes back to Griffith, or he goes back to Falconia as Griffith, before he transforms back to Griffith, of course. But another thing that could happen is that, the second thing that could happen, he turns into Griffith while on Elfhelm, and he's right in front of Guts right now. This is chaos waiting to happen, and I think this is showing that chaos is about to happen. Remember how I said little Isidro's sequence was the calm before the storm? Well, this is the storm. The appearance of the Moonlight Boy, chaos is about to happen, man. It just is. Things are gonna happen. So Griffith could transform from the Moonlight Boy. That could happen because obviously the full moon goes away or something, and time flows different on Elfhelm. Here's the worst case scenario that could happen. You see, Griffith is missing. Time flows different on Elfhelm. So what if time flows slower on Elfhelm, and then Griffith is gone for an extended period of time in the real world where time flows faster? You see, his apostles, the entire new Bend of the Hawk, they're going to be wondering, where's our leader? Where are they? And they have someone who is able to travel through the world spiral tree. They have someone that can guide them through it, Sona, the medium. So they're going to go searching for Griffith. And when they find him on Elfhelm, they're also going to see all the people on Elfhelm. They're going to see Guts. They're going to see everyone. They're going to see Skull Knight. Skull Knight's going to see them also, and Guts is going to see them. And things are about to go down potentially. So Sona leads an army of apostles to find Griffith, because Griffith going missing is crazy. So she's not just going to go alone. She is going to bring an army. She's going to bring people, and she wants to get Griffith back, right? So she leads this army. They go to Elfhelm, and chaos is just going to ensue. It's just going to happen. That's just how it is. Now you see, there is this 4th option that I just didn't really say. I know I said there were 3, but I do want to bring it up in case, there's the potential for it to happen still. It's not ruled out. And that is that Guts finally realizes that the Moonlight Boy and Griffith are sharing a body. Also, importantly, without Griffith transforming back, okay? He just realizes, though, that they are sharing a body. Now, that could mean a lot of things, and this is why I want to make a whole nother video talking about the Moonlight Boy and why they're the most pivotal character. Because if Guts realizes this, Guts has to make a choice. That he has to accept that, and every full moon he gets to see his child and things, or his anger could take him over and he could kill the Moonlight Boy, subsequently maybe getting rid of Griffith's physical body and then throwing him back into wherever the other god hands are. Anyways, this video is getting pretty long. To wrap it up, basically things are going to happen next chapter. I doubt the Moonlight Boy is just going to disappear. Either Griffith is going to appear, or his army's going to appear, come looking for him. And that would be very bad. Both of which would be very, very, very bad. And maybe both happen. Maybe his army appears and Griffith transforms back, because he doesn't go back to Falconia. He doesn't have the time. So anyways, wrapping the video up. I hope you enjoyed. I loved Berserk's new chapter also, I loved the chapter. It was great. It was definitely worth the wait, There wasn't a lot of information relative to the last chapter, and it was kind of boring the first read through because we didn't know what was happening, and we just had this little Isidro sequence that kind of looked wrong. Not wrong, but it was kind of boring. But then reading it the second way through, we knew, okay, this is the calm before the storm. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you have a great day, night, life, whatever, and see ya.